There's been a lot of talk about the Xbox One Project Scorpio ever since its reveal at E3 this year. Of course, it's going to be doing 4K and all sorts of other shiny stuff, and now we have comments from Albert Penello, who spoke in a rather lengthy interview with The Guardian. And he spoke about various things, and there was a couple of bits from the interview that I want to touch on today. But of course, the full interview will be linked in the description below if you want to give it a read. It is quite lengthy. Now, the first thing I want to touch on are them addressing the doubts that have been expressed by various people that Scorpio would have the processing power to run games that will be rendered in native 4K with HDR at 60 FPS. Of course, the current Xbox One does struggle to render 1080p at that frame rate. Now, Penello did go so far as to claim that quote-unquote true 4K gaming is the ambition for Scorpio, but didn't go so far as to guarantee that this will be achievable at high frame rates. And he said, quote, "On the games, we had to give ourselves a goal for what performance level we wanted to build in the box, and our goal was to be able to deliver true 4K games. The same engines running on Xbox One being about to run in Scorpio on 4K. We said very clearly that it's up to the developers how they want to take advantage of that power. Some developers focus on effects, some on frame rate, some on resolution. It's up to them what they want to do. If you look at game engines like Frostbite and Unreal, developers have got really good at scaling. They're excellent at figuring out how to build textures at very high resolutions, then being able to optimize that artwork for various platforms. With that in consideration, it'll be easy to take advantage of the performance difference of Scorpio because these guys are already building games that far surpass what consoles can do today." So from those comments, it does seem that they're leaving this sort of door open to developers to walk through if they wish to have high frame rates rather than or as well as 4K. So perhaps we're going to be seeing something like Crystal Dynamics have done with Rise of the Tomb Raider, which of course is going to be coming up in the PS4 Pro. And as I discussed before, they're going to be having options to play it at 4K, 1080p locked, or 1080p high frame rate mode. And in theory, if we had something like this on the Xbox Scorpio, we could actually see reaching 60 FPS if, say for example, you had a 1080p unlocked frame rate mode available on most games that decided to support it. That would actually be a really, really good use of the power. To be honest, if every game had that on the Scorpio, I wouldn't complain, because to be honest, I think a lot of people just want that 60 FPS. You know, a lot of people aren't going to have the 4K TV to actually really take advantage of the 4K gaming. So in my mind, it's like, look, I just want better frame rates, you know. So if they do that, and if they leave it up to developers whether or not they want to use the power for frame rate or for resolution or for better textures or whatever, that actually sounds like a level of flexibility that I personally would love to see more of in console gaming. Now, another thing that I want to focus on from the interview between Penello and The Guardian was his comments on the fact that Sony ignored 4K Blu-ray support for the PlayStation 4 Pro. Of course, that's something that will be present in both the Xbox One S and Project Scorpio. Now, of course, a lot of people were surprised by this, and apparently Microsoft were also caught off guard by Sony's decision here. And Albert said, quote, "I don't want to bait any sort of console war. I have a lot of respect for what Sony does, but analytically, I think they made interesting decisions in their product that surprised me. The lack of a 4K disc player, given Sony's media background, was a surprise. Looking at what they've done historically, I don't think many people would have predicted that." And to be honest, he's not wrong. It is a very strange decision for a lot of people that Sony neglected or decided not to include a 4K Blu-ray player inside the PlayStation 4 Pro, especially when you consider their history. And of course, many people were questioning, you know, why. And of course, I have no inside knowledge or anything like that, unfortunately. But if I had to guess, it was probably to keep the cost thing down, because obviously the Pro is £350 or $399, which is pretty cheap considering the power of the device. But maybe if they'd included a 4K Blu-ray player, this wouldn't be as cheap. Perhaps that's the reason they cut it out. That is purely speculative on my part, but it would kind of make sense. But definitely some interesting comments there from Albert Penello about both the Scorpio and, of course, the PlayStation 4 Pro. One last thing that I want to focus on from the interview, which again will be linked below, is his touching on the fact that Microsoft announced the Xbox Scorpio over a year before it's going to come out. Of course, it's not out till holiday 2017, whereas of course Sony announced PS4 Pro like a few weeks ago and it's out in November. And he said, quote, "We made a pretty bold decision in announcing it that as early as we did. Our reasoning was when you're in this new world of iterative consoles, you're going to want to give customers a little bit more of a heads up. We wanted people to go into this holiday with their eyes open, knowing what Xbox One S was shipping, but that Scorpio was coming. Frankly, it also gave us more time to be open with our development partners so we get better games when Scorpio launched. There are a lot of rumours about what Sony was going to ship and when, but it didn't really factor into our decision to announce Scorpio at E3, and it hasn't really changed our plans. We said we're going to build the most powerful console. That's going to hold true." So, really interesting. It seems that, of course, Microsoft were not being reactionary, and neither were Sony, to be honest. They've obviously both been working on this for a long time, so it is quite interesting. They've both arrived at similar points. Of course, Microsoft are definitely going for more power, much more power from what we know, than the PS4 Pro, but it still is interesting nonetheless. That is me done for this video, however. As always, I'd love to hear some thoughts and opinions from you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.